Recently, the third installment of the Bhool Bhulaiyaa franchise released. After watching it, I had to go back and watch the first one to restore my faith in storytelling. The movie, no matter how good or bad it was, got trolled massively online. People picked out many mistakes and criticized everyone associated with it, from actors to VFX artists. Bollywood is simply not learning its lessons from the constant business-making ventures. The concept that made the first movie a classic has been lost in the recent two films.
ताला ताला होता है, चाबी चाबी होती है। अब जैसे मेरी हवेली की चाबी है, अभी अब
To be honest, the original Bhool Bhulaiyaa worked because of many reasons. Any movie that have ever become a classic and has repeat watch value usually connects to the audience at a philosophical level rather than just cheap scares. To recreate the same classic, first we have to understand what are the key philosophical concepts that the first movie in the franchisee portrayed. Before we discuss the philosophy, let's be clear that the first film was not about ghosts at all. It did not try to pretend to be a horror film. The movie dealt with fragmented identity crisis of Avni, the character played by Vidya Balan. It also dealt with traditional conditioning of the society that rejected people struggling with mental illness. The humor in the movie was written as per the Indian audience and did not push too much into accepting the Western ideas.
लेकिन मैंने कई खतरनाक भूतों को गुलाम बनाकर अपने घर का पानी भरवाया है.
The character played by Akshay Kumar was a doctor, not a fraud just trying to dupe people like in the recent films. There were many hidden references in the movie that you might have missed.
तुम्हें कुछ कहना है आखिरी बार?
आखिरी बार?
The illusion of reality and the mind's power, Maya. The title, Bhool Bhulaiyaa, literally meant labyrinth or maze, suggested the idea of being trapped in illusions, a concept deeply rooted in Hindu and Buddhist philosophy. The palace, with its hidden rooms and corridors, symbolized the labyrinth of the mind, where layers of consciousness hide secrets and traumas. In Hindu philosophy, Maya represents the illusion that can obscure reality, leading individuals to be lost in their perceptions rather than seeing the truth. In the movie, Avni becomes entangled in her trauma and develops dissociative identity disorder, which leads her to embody the spirit of Manjulika. This blurring between the real and the illusion highlights how trauma and repressed memories can create an alternate reality within the mind, affecting one's behavior and actions. It would have been great to see Avni continue her journey in the subsequent films. The makers could have made her a guide for new characters dealing with their own trauma. Science versus superstition. The movie explored the clash between science and superstition, a theme reflected in the character of Dr. Aditya Srivastav, a psychiatrist who approaches the haunting from a rational and psychological perspective. His belief in scientific reasoning contrasts with the traditional beliefs of the villagers and family members who think the palace is haunted by a ghost of a vengeful spirit. You can see throughout the film, Aditya constantly tries to keep a close watch on Avni. Even the religious guru had endorsed the ways of science. The movie subtly argued that while science can explain many things, it must also respect cultural sensitivities and the mental frameworks people grow up with. Aditya does not outright dismiss the villagers' beliefs. Instead, he carefully navigates them to uncover the psychological root of the haunting, while the new ones just show a scary face. The nature of identity and self. Avni represents a fragmented identity, a concept explored in Western philosophy by thinkers like Freud, as well as in Indian philosophy, which discusses the multiplicity of selves within each individual. Avni, under the influence of trauma and repression, develops a split identity, embodying both her own self and that of Manjulika. This duality raises questions about the nature of identity and whether individuals are singular beings or a collection of multiple selves, shaped by experiences, memories, and repressed emotions. This theme is also echoed in the way people in the palace interpret events. Each person in the story is trapped in their perception or Bhool Bhulaiyaa, interpreting real-life situations in ways that align with their beliefs, thus projecting their own selves onto the situation. They see the ghost in everything rather than trying to see the reality. The burden of repression and cultural conditioning. The movie delves into the idea that repressing desires, traumas, and emotions can lead to psychological distress. Avni, who grew up in a conservative environment, suppresses her curiosity about the palace's secrets and her fascination with Manjulika's tragic story. This repressed curiosity ultimately leads her to embody Manjulika, a symbolic representation of her subconscious rebellion against her cultural conditioning. There are characters like Radha and other women of the palace who were seen to be living with the same cultural conditioning. Scenes like this one shows how in Indian society an open show of affection between a husband and wife is seen as taboo. Freedom and bondage, moksha versus samsara. The spirit of Manjulika, trapped in the palace, symbolizes bondage to past life, grievances, and unfulfilled desires, akin to the Hindu philosophical idea of samsara, the cycle of suffering and rebirth driven by attachment. Avni, who becomes a vessel for Manjulika, is metaphorically trapped in the same cycle. Her journey, and the ultimate release of the spirit, represent moksha, liberation, from suffering and attachment. Instead of showing actual ghosts running around scaring people, the recent movies could have delved into personalities of characters. But, no, they just have to ruin a classic. Cultural heritage and individual freedom. The palace in Bhool Bhulaiyaa represents cultural heritage with its myths, stories, and relics of the past, reflecting India's rich yet complex tradition. The movie showed the world of the villages beautifully. The village looked vibrant to the contrasting rich life of the palace dwellers. While the villagers believed in preserving the cultural identity, the prince was a strong supporter of Western culture and logical reasoning. He celebrated the heritage but at the same time did not want to take part in the superstitious beliefs. This tension raises philosophical questions about the extent to which individuals are defined by cultural heritage. Should one adhere to traditions or seek individual freedom outside these boundaries? While the new movies just show superstition as a way of making a living by cheating people, the original film tried to curb the superstition. Though the movie was a remake of 1993 Malayalam film Manichitrathaju, it stayed true to the Hindi audience through its storytelling.
पत्युक जी, तुम यहाँ बैठे बैठे क्या कर रहे हो?